So Autism Speaks, they provided us with an actuarial study from the largest actuarial consulting firm in the United States to tell us exactly, based on Montana's bill, how much will it cost or make premiums go up? Because that was a $1 million question.
Exactly.
What's this going to cost everybody that has insurance? Because that's a major concern with healthcare being so expensive right now. And so we had a 22-page report to show them exactly what they think it's going to cost. And it was $1.05 a month premium increase. So calculates 3 cents a day to cover all the kids that have health insurance to get their needs met. So that just seemed so insignificant. It's like 3 cents. and then, fiscally, that's what it would cost, us individually in our premiums. But the cost if we don't treat these kids when they become adults, there was a Harvard study that we used a lot in our committee hearings and testimony that if a child with autism doesn't get early intervention, their societal cost, not to the parents, to society, is $3.2 million each over the course of their lifetime. And if they do get early intervention, that drops by almost $2 million. So for every child, if they get early intervention, they're basically saving taxpayers $2 million. So financially, I was just like, this is a no-brainer. I mean, not only as a parent that I want my child to get this benefit or to, be the best he can be, to live as normally as he possibly can, but as a taxpayer, come on. I don't want to pay $2 million for every child with autism for the rest of their life, an extra $2 million. So, I just didn't see I was like, this fiscally makes so much sense. And early intervention, that's how it is with most things.
Exactly.
So we used a lot of numbers in our testimony with Senate Finance. This was not about emotion. This was about the dollars and cents. And that was probably the toughest hurdle, was the Senate Finance Committee. It really was. The chairman did not want our bill passing, and he was trying to be sympathetic, but I think we called him on, and his whole group of Republicans that were basically against us, because they just can't wrap their arms around it. It's an insurance mandate. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's the right thing to do. It's an insurance mandate. We're Republicans, therefore we must be against it. That was so irritating. I can't even tell you, when they can't actually look at individual issues. And it's just because there's a word mandate and their ears turn off. So, but, they were trying to say, well, we want to help kids. We're going to throw state money into CHIP. And put every child with autism in CHIP. And then, well, maybe we'll just throw more money into the waiver. I mean, they threw out all of these scenarios that were all being fed to them by the insurance industry. And every single one of them, we're like, the state's budget is in crisis. They don't even have enough money to fund what they currently have in programs. How are they going to throw millions and millions of dollars into programs that they don't have? That doesn't make any sense. And yes, this mandate doesn't help every child with autism, but it's a great start. And should every child get the type of therapy they need? Absolutely. But insurance can play their part, and then the Medicaid can play their part, and CHIP can play their part, and hopefully we can get all these kids covered through various programs.
Did you have any statistics on what kind of percentage impact this bill was going to have on the total number of kids in the state?
They figured, and this came from the insurance industry, that about 40% of kids have insurance.
Wow, that's huge.
So, and they were trying to use that as that's a opposition thing. Well, what about the other 60%? Do they not deserve all of this life-saving treatment? That was in House Appropriations. They got down and dirty then.
Oh, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
So it sounds like the Senate Finance was kind of getting backed into a corner.
Well, we were calling their bluff.
Exactly.
And they should have really known better, having Senator Gillen sponsoring the bill. I mean, really. And then our supporters on that committee were absolutely fantastic. Senator Watson Reed from Missoula, he was one of our biggest advocates. And he was not going to take this stuff. And he's been around a long time. He's a smart man. He knew what they were doing. You know, he talked to me a lot about it. And he explaining to me, this is what they're trying to do to kill your bill, and then the money's not going to be, you know, he explained it all. And I had pretty much figured it out too, but talking to somebody who really knew, because he's, you know, these are his colleagues, that just sealed the deal. And he was just such a fantastic person. I just really liked him a lot. Carol Williams was phenomenal. She really went to bat for us so many times, countless times. I really, really enjoyed her a lot. She's a very smart, compassionate woman who's, I think, termed out, unfortunately.
Well, it sounds like, you know, the whole process really tested, you know, the commitment of the group.
Well, and that was what the insurance industry was hoping for. It's like, you know, these are just moms and dads. They have bigger fish to fry. They've got bigger problems at home. They're going to give up. And that's what they were hoping for. And they underestimated us.
Well, that's probably been their experience in the past.
Sure. But, you know, that whole mama bear thing, you do anything to protect your children. And when Senate Finance was finally, we had heard that they were going to take action on our bill. We found out, like, a Sunday afternoon we found out. And I had just came home from Livingston for the weekend. Came home an hour later, found out I was going to have to turn around and go to Helena the next morning. And we knew it was going to be a tough vote. We didn't know if we had the votes, because we needed at least one. No, I think in that committee we needed 2 Republican votes. We had, it just to even pass by a margin of 1, we had to have 2. And we knew we had 1. And then we had like a couple teetering. There was nothing confirmed. So I called Darcy and I said, can you go to Helena at 4 in the morning? And I'm bringing Brandon. And she brought her daughter, and I got my son up at 4 in the morning. It was blizzarding outside, and we made the trek to Helena. And there was other families from Ronan there, family from Helena, and we loaded that hearing room all dressed in red with our autistic children. And if they were going to tell our children no, they were going to tell it to them face. And they did not want to vote with us there. You could feel them just squirming in their chair. It was important. I'm glad we did it, because I think it made a huge difference. There was one senator he's from Northwest, like Whitefish area, and he had told his Republican colleagues, you know, I feel for these families, but because they caucused right before they voted, I can't vote for a mandate. I'm going to stick with you guys on this. And then he goes in and votes, and he's like, I can't. I have to vote for this. And one of the other Republicans, Senator Barkas from Kalispell, who opposed us all the way through. You know, he was on both committees, the floor, I mean, all the way through. But I really like him a lot, because he always communicated with us. Despite us not agreeing on anything at all, he's a good man. And he emailed me after that vote, and he's like, "You'll get a kick out of this." After that vote, I had to give Senator Zinke a little bit of a hard time because I think he was in, like, the military, so he's a tough guy. That all it takes, if the Taliban knew all it took was a mom in a red shirt to get you to fold, the war would have been over. I just thought that was so funny. So, even these senators that I totally could not agree with on this issue, they're not bad people.
Right.
We just have different opinions.
Yes.
So, I really enjoyed him a lot as a person. We just, couldn't agree on this issue. And we agreed to disagree, but he's a nice man. But that was just so funny. It just, it made me laugh.
Yeah, thank God.
So we passed out of that committee 11-8.
Wow.
So we had 3 Republican votes. And Senator Leibel was one we weren't sure about, and he's from Darby. And he spoke at the hearing, and I watched it again. He was just fantastic. He just said, I don't like mandates, but these kids, we have to do something. And it's one of those things, we'll pay now or we'll pay a lot later. And so, he couldn't have said it better. It's really what it came down to.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
So then we go back to the floor of the Senate for second reading yet again, because they made amendments. And but we passed, I think, an equal margin pretty much. It was like 37-13 or something. And there was still debate. Joe Balliot from Bozeman really didn't like us. He was the chair from I shouldn't say didn't like us. He didn't like our bill. He was the chair of the Business and Labor Committee, and he was adamantly opposed to it. So he got up and spoke in opposition both times. But Kim, again, was brilliant, and we made it through the Republican-controlled Senate. It was phenomenal. It was when Dave Wanzenreed, we were actually emailing back and forth during. I was watching it online, and he was like, "Okay, we're up next," and as soon as it passed, he emailed me. He's like, "I cannot believe you did this." You have no idea how hard it is to do what you just did in a Republican-controlled Senate, and he was just so happy, and it was just fun to share that with him, and to realize that that they still get excited about these things when it's their day in and day out, but there are issues that excite the legislators too, that they can be passionate about it, that it isn't just the grind of the day, that these are laws that affect real people, real families.
And had the media really gotten involved at this point?
Yeah, they followed us pretty closely the whole time. Mike Dennison was kind of the capital reporter for all of the Lee newspapers. He's in Helena. He wrote several articles. They took pictures. I think he interviewed me twice. The Montana News Station, which is like the Q2 affiliate, they followed us the entire time, pretty much. They have a Helena station, sister station. And then the NBC station in Helena did a lot of coverage. We actually did a half-an-hour program called the Don Dunwell Report. It's on, I think, like Sundays and Wednesdays or something, and it was kind of a sit around the table, and it was Senator Gillen, myself, and then Frank Cody from Blue Cross Blue Shield,
Wow.
and then Senator Barkas, who's the gentleman I talked about that, we never could agree, but I like him as a person. So there was the 4 of us kind of, and it wasn't even a debate. There wasn't enough time. The moderator would basically ask each one of us a question, and we didn't have time to respond to each other, so it would be like, okay, and now we're taking a commercial break. So it wasn't a debate, and it was, he would just ask questions and we answered.
But still.
But it was a half-hour program. And they did, Yellowstone Public Radio was very good to us. Or not just, or NPR, I call it Yellowstone Public Radio because I'm from Billings, but NPR was very, very good to us. Jackie was interviewing us a lot, and we did press conference. We did a press conference right before the Senate Finance executive action. Put a little pressure.
Yeah.
So the TV was there, newspaper was there, and the radio. So we had Carol Williams spoke, and Senator Gillen, and Senator Wanzenreed, and I spoke, and so I never thought I was going to be on TV so much. I really wasn't anticipating that.
Just one of those side effects.
Yeah, you kind of get used to it, though. You know, it's all, you know how to work the microphones now, and so. But it was good.
Excellent. So that was the Senate.
Mm-hmm. Which took forever.
Yeah.
Well, we were introduced in the Senate January 15th, and we passed on third reading. What day was that? It was like March 24th.
Wow.
It took a
2
long
months.
time, over 2 months. And when we got out of the Senate, there was only a month left of the whole session. And, you know, every day up there, bills die. Or, you know.
Yeah.
So their lists aren't as long as the session goes on. When we got to the House, it moved lightning fast.
So how does that work?
Well, they transmit it to the House after third reading in the Senate, which means it passes the Senate as a chamber. And again, we get introduced in the House, and they refer it to committee.
So you needed a sponsor over there?
We had somebody to carry the bill. The
Carry.
sponsor
Okay, got it.
remains the same.
Okay.
It was always Senator Gillen's bill. But Kendall Van Dyke, who is my representative, carried it, and that was the plan all along. He was...
ready and waiting.
yeah, I had lunch with him before it even started to tell him that this was coming. So, and I don't know if anybody thought we would ever make it out of the Senate. You know, I have a friend who's a lobbyist, and he's been doing it for years, and he pretty much said that it usually takes 2 to 4 times to get a law passed. So, you know, I think he was just trying to prepare me, don't feel bad if you can't get it passed the first time, because that rarely happens. It's not easy to make a law and to get it through all of those hurdles, because it can go down. If it goes down once, it's done. So we, thankfully, with the House being Democratic controlled, that was actually a little bit easier. So we got sent straight to House Appropriations instead of having to go through 2 committees in the House. Since we went through Business and Labor, they didn't see any reason why we needed to go through Business and Labor in both chambers, because it's like the same committee. So, and we were down to a month before the session was over. And so, you know, Senator Gillen and Representative Van Dyke made their point that this was just be a waste of time to go through another tedious, long hearing, because they're always long when it comes to this bill. So we went straight to House Appropriations, which is where they decide if they're going to fund it for the state employees. So this was the last opportunity for the insurance industry to come out in opposition publicly. And they're always working the hallways. They're always, you know, catching them on the way to the bathroom and inviting them to dinners, and they're always there, and there's hundreds of them from all the different organizations and special interest type stuff. I could not believe how many lobbyists we have in Montana, but this was their last shot to get up there, and they pulled out the big guns. They were not trying to be nice anymore. This was their last opportunity to kill our bill, pretty much. And so it was, unfortunately, the House Appropriations put a sunset on our bill, so it would expire in 2 years. And so that would mean we would have to go back next session and ask them to repeal the sunset and go, you know, not totally through all of it again, but basically go through all of it again. And that just made me want to be sick, because this was so much work and so hard on my family and friends that I had to rely on everybody for so much because this was very time consuming. And not only with the time, but emotionally very all consuming. So I didn't know if I could do it again. I was like, no, we got to pass this time. And I was just dead set on it. There was no other option. So we we got out of House appropriations with the sunset 18-2. So had the sunset not been on there, we wouldn't have passed. We would have passed, but we wouldn't have passed by that margin. So we got Representative Sanju, who's a very conservative Republican from Kalispell, who happens to have a very good friend with a son with autism, offer an amendment on the floor to remove the amendment. Doesn't that sound funny? Offering an amendment to remove the amendment. Because the problem with the amendment was not only that it was going to sunset in 2 years, but it would mean the House version was a different bill than the Senate. So we would have to go back to the Senate, which would just be another opportunity to kill it. So we really didn't want to go back to the Senate. And we really didn't want to come back in 2 years and fight for our children's lives again. So Representative Sanju said he was going to do it, and he said he was going to get us the votes to make it pass. And he did. It was like 58-42, so he had 8 Republicans voting with him on that, despite, I'm sure, leadership telling them no.
And what was the date?
That was April 8th. And then immediately afterwards, they took it to the floor vote just to pass the House on second reading, and Kendall was carrying it and taking the questions and going through the debate, and the debate was going on and on and on. And I think by this point everyone knew it was going to pass, because if we just repealed that sunset provision with 8 Republican votes, we were at least going to get that same number of votes to pass the bill. So at that point, I think everyone knew this is a done deal. It's going to pass, and it passed 77-23, which was
wow,
fantastic. And Kim made a funny statement when we were looking at the list at the party about the people who voted for the bill, the supporters, and how it was quite the strange bedfellows. Because, most of these people, a lot of them wouldn't agree on anything. But when it came down to something with kids and obvious, blatant discrimination of their care, that has nothing to do with politics. We're all people. So.
Wow. So they did good.
Our votes were fantastic. I mean, other than that one first committee, we had a major majority vote, especially on the floors. So it was quite the process.
So what does the bill say? What does it mean for families? What does it give them?
Well, it covers the diagnosis and treatment of autism in children.
Initial eval.
Mm-hmm. And it has maximums, so we could actually assign a dollar amount to it. That was something that all the states seem to be doing. Annual maximum benefit. Not all of them. Some states have sky's the limit, but we figured in Montana we were going to have a tough enough time passing it at all, so we better put some maximums on there. And we started out at 50 across the board up through age 25, and it was amended down several times, and what it ended up being was children 0 to through their 9th birthday, $50,000 a year, and then 9 to 18, $20,000 a year. So that really kept us being able to focus on this as early intervention is where it's so critical, but we can't leave the older kids out because they still have needs. So,
right.
but since we were pushing so hard on the early intervention, that really kind of fit with what we were telling them. This is when we have to have it, and this is when it's the most expensive. So, and it'll cover speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy. There's quite a list. It covers applied behavioral analysis, which is very expensive, and it covers, I think, I can't even think, but there's a whole list.
And when does it?
January 1st, it will go into effect unless a person's insurance contract renews on a different date. So, like, it could be July, but 70% of insurance contracts renew January 1st. So, for most people, that will be when it takes effect. For others, it would just depend on their contract.
So, whenever they renew after January 1st, or on January 1st later.
Yeah. And, if you feel like you're getting denied still, start by contacting your insurance company, and maybe they just made a mistake. And if that doesn't work, we have a state auditor, we have an insurance commission office. The law is there. It's there to protect us, to give our children coverage, and their offices are there to help us if we feel like we're being wronged. So
have you talked to them yet?
To the
Insurance Commission?
Not yet. I was kind of waiting for the last of all of this to wrap up before I start talking to them. I know that the state has, like, especially the people that are working on the waiver and stuff, that they had a meeting a couple weeks ago about asking. They had Frank Cody come from Blue Cross Blue Shield and asked him, how are you working on implementing this? How is it going? Just, asking questions. So, and it shouldn't be hard for them to implement. It really shouldn't. Indiana has been covering all of the stuff that's in our bill for 8 years. They know how to do it. They know they can just pretty much copy their codes, I would think, and call it good.